right. Hello, everyone, and welcome back after Thanksgiving break. I hope everyone had a nice week off. So we are starting week 7 now. This is the last week before finals week. So we're going to have a few finishing up assignments to do, and we're kind of moving on to the topic of where we want to go now because we're looking more towards the future and where we are going after we leave Rose State and doing a little bit of reflection on ourselves. So your first reading about where do I want to go is going to have another video from the Road Trip Nation videos that were in some of the previous weeks lectures and reading materials. So go ahead and watch that video. When you click on this and read through that, click on that video and watch that. And then you're going to be doing a complimentary assignment that's called Elements of Your Life Story. So when you click on this activity, it's going to have some information here for you to read, and it's asking you to reflect and write your answers to the following questions. For each question, provide sufficient details and be specific. So you're going to read through this where it's going to ask you some questions about role models, high point in your life, life challenge, your turning point, sociocultural aspect, and then dreams, hopes, and plans for the future. So what you're going to want to do is read through. You may just want to copy all of this and then paste it into the text entry box and then just go one at a time, read through all of this and then answer it. It's asking you specifically here the questions, what it is asking you to answer. So whether you do this on a Microsoft Word document or the text entry box, it may just be easier to copy all of this, paste it, and then you can just go one at a time as you're answering through the questions. And then you will submit that either as a Microsoft Word document attachment or the text entry box. Not too hard, but you basically do want to just be thorough reading it and make sure you're answering all of the questions here in full and just try to be detailed. And then going back, wait for it all to load up. The next topic, I guess you could say, that we're going to be talking about is what am I looking for? And I cannot remember if this one had a video. I just looked through the other one. Well, it does have some reading for you to do here. I cannot remember if there was a video in this one. It does talk about some topics like the video interview or the in-person interview. We're not doing an exercise for interviews for the 8 weeks class. I do with my 16 weeks classes just because there's a lot more time, but there's already so many assignments that I have you guys do. I do not have you do an interview assignment. But go ahead and read through this because it does have good information about the interview process and things that you need to think about there as far as, going forward. If you do plan to go into your career field and apply for a job that, hopefully is something that you're really wanting to go into, it is always good to have some good tips and information on the interview process because that is your first impression to an employer. But you will have another assessment to do after this one. It is not as long of an assessment as the student success profile. It is still on the Vida Navis website, but it is one that is more geared towards when you answer the questions on the Super Strong assessment, which you will see here for the activity. When you answer the questions, it's going to give you results page that has to do with your interests, career potentials, because even if you know what career you want to go into, it is going to give you some additional information about the way that you answer the question, some other potential ideas for careers, or even kind of a twist on things that you're already interested in. Because most people, when they take it, if they already have a specific career field that they're really interested in, they usually end up answering the questions where this assessment pops up. Their actual ideal career field does pop up on their assessment, showing that is one that they are, that it's indicating that they are going to be good at. But it also has some additional information. So when you get the results page after you complete this assessment, you're going to want to read through it because it is going to have a lot of additional information, and you're going to use that information from the results page to basically answer the activity questions that you'll be submitting. So you will see that there is a link here, and it is going to take you to the Vida Navis website. You're going to use the same login and password that you used when you did the Super Strong assessment, but it's going to automatically direct you to, the student success profile, but it's going to automatically direct you instead to the super strong assessment. That's the one you're taking this time. So go ahead and go through it. This one's much, much shorter. It'll probably only take you about 5 minutes to answer the questions and get through it all. And then you'll get the results page. You'll want to read through it, and then you're going to answer these questions here. So you'll just copy and paste all of this into the text entry box, and you're basically going to answer it. You do need to be specific. You need to use information from your results page on the Super Strong assessment in your answers here. So just make sure you're not just answering these in a general way. You want to take specific information that your results page gave you in order to basically answer these questions. So go ahead and do that. If you do want to upload a screenshot of your results page, you can do that, but it's not really required for this. It's mainly I do need to be able to see that you took the assessment, and you will have to be specific about results that you got on your Super Strong assessment in order to answer these correctly, because there are many identifiers in your results that I will be able to tell that you are actually taking information from your results page. So just make sure you're using that while you're answering these questions, and then you will submit that text entry after you complete your assessment and read through your results. And so the next thing that you'll see here in our folder, you are going to see that I am already posting the instructions for the final paper. Your final paper is not due this week, but I put the instructions for the final paper so you can read through it. It's going to kind of help you when you're doing your pre-writing assignment, because it's letting you know what it is that I'm asking you to write about for your final paper. And then some of the things that you're going to do on the pre-writing activity are going to be helpful for you, that you can use some of that information in your final paper. So I just give you the instructions for the final paper this week, but it's not due this week. So when you go to the pre-writing activity, there's a lot. It is worth 20 points. I broke down everything. When you're answering all of the questions, I broke down everything to how many points they're worth. So potentially if you skip something, you don't answer it, anything like that, you're already going to know how many points are going to be taken off automatically for that. So for this, again, I just recommend you copy and paste this whole thing. You can either put it in the text entry box, or you can put it into a Microsoft Word document if you prefer, and then just go one at a time through it. And you're basically just answering the questions. You're not writing a paper for this. You're answering these questions just to kind of get you into that mode of answering things that are going to be pertinent that you could potentially use on your final paper. And it's almost like if you were kind of doing some brainstorming, but you're just doing it more in a way where you're answering questions to kind of get you into that mode of thinking about things that you could potentially use in your paper for next week. So just start, copy paste the whole thing and just start with number 1, read the question, answer each, and depending on how many different things I'm asking you to answer, that's how the points are set up. So like, for example, number 2, you have three different things you're answering in number 2. So it's worth 3 points altogether. So if you don't answer one of these, you potentially could have some points taken off. So just go through each one, answer it to the best of your ability, try to be thorough, because you will be able to use some of this on your final paper, especially number 5 here. When you're answering all of these questions in number 5, a lot of this is going to be pertinent to things that you may want to use on your final paper. So you'll be able to finish this pre-writing activity, and potentially next week, you'll be able to take some of this information that you've already kind of brainstormed and answered all these questions and be able to use some of that on your final paper. So just be aware of that. It's kind of to help you out. So that way next week you already have some things that you could discuss in your paper, and it might give you a little less stress as far as writing a paper because you already have some information here that you can use. So that is that for the pre-writing activity. And then you'll have one more thing to complete for this week, and that is your MyMap project. So back in week 1, I had you all get a copy of your degree sheet, or a degree sheet for a potential career or major that you could potentially go into. I didn't have you fill it out in week 1 because you're going to actually be filling it out this week. So you should already have your degree sheet where you're going to be able to complete this assignment now, because that is due for this week. So when we click on the MyMap activity, I don't think I clicked on that fully. There we go. You're going to see you already had all of this information in week one where you could read through it and you basically knew what it was you're going to be doing for this week. But all you had to turn in at that time was your blank degree sheet. So read through this. This is what you're going to essentially be answering. You do need to indicate on your map, if you've already taken several classes, you need to indicate somehow, some way, what classes you've already taken. So how many credits have already been taken, and I need to know what classes you've already taken. And then going forward, you're going to be mapping out future semesters and taking all of the classes that are on your degree sheet that you have to take and kind of making yourself a schedule. So for next semester, for spring 2021, what are potentially classes that you may take for next semester? Then if you plan to take classes in the summer of 2021, what potential classes would you take then? And you're using your degree sheet, and you need to pay attention to things like if there are prerequisites that you have to take for certain classes, making sure that you're scheduling those prerequisites before you're planning that actual class, and just kind of map your way out into future semesters. And I mean, even if you only have a couple of semesters left, that's okay. You're still indicating for me what classes you've already taken and then just mapping out what you have left to do. And I do give you two different examples from previous classes that I've had where I had two examples of students that did a really good job on their map. And both of them are very different in the way that they made their map. You don't have to do it in a specific way. You can do it however you feel most comfortable with. One person typed it out mostly, and then the other person kind of made a chart. So you can actually click on these icons here if you want to see two different examples of how somebody mapped out their basically the rest of their semesters that they had left, showing what classes they've already taken and then what they plan to take going out. And even if it's not perfect, obviously things come up. You may have to schedule a different class in a semester because maybe a class is full. I mean, that's going to come up and that's going to happen, but you're just basically giving yourself kind of a roadmap for potential classes you have left, what semesters you could potentially take them in, and you're supposed to be mapping it out until basically your whole entire program is complete. And you're also kind of giving yourself a look at potentially when it is you might be able to look forward to graduation as well. So map that all out. I would say do it kind of dependent on class load that you feel comfortable with. So if you normally take maybe 3 classes a semester, map it out that way. If you take more than that, you can map it out however you usually take classes. And if this is your first semester, that's okay. You can kind of just gauge what you think you might be able to handle. If you work full time and you're only able to maybe take a couple classes at a time, map it out that way. Just kind of do it in whatever mode is going to be good for you personally, depending on what you normally take for a class load or what your work schedule is, what you think you'd be able to handle for future semesters going forward. So please look at these examples so you can kind of visually see how other people have made their MyMap project in the past, and that might help you kind of structure how you want to do it. And you can do it as a text entry if you want to type it all out. Just kind of keep it clear to where I can tell for sure what classes you've already taken, and then each semester broken down going forward, how many classes and which classes you plan to take in those semesters. And that's basically what you're doing in a nutshell. So you're kind of giving yourself a roadmap for going forward till your graduation. So you ideally, when it's all said and done, whether you're showing me what classes you've taken and the ones you plan to take in the future, you should be able to see that all of the credits that are required for your degree are going to either be showing with what you've already taken and then mapped out in the future. It should all equal up to whatever the credits are that you would need for graduation. So just kind of look at it like that. And when you look at these examples, it'll probably help make a little more sense as well. So that is your MyMap project. And then you will submit that. You can do it as a Microsoft Word document as well, and then upload it as an attachment, whichever way you prefer. Either way. And then, of course, if you want to do the health and wellness bonus points for this week, it's going to be the same as all the other weeks in completing that. And then you do next week, looking forward, is finals week next week. And that is when you're going to write your final paper. So you do already have the instructions for it up here this week in week 7, where you can kind of prepare for it if you want to kind of get yourself into that mindset. But just also bear in mind when you complete the pre-writing activity, it's going to give you a lot of good information that you will end up being able to use for your paper. So it's kind of like a very detailed brainstorming doing this pre-writing activity. So you have some good information you can use next week for your final paper. And I do recommend that if you do have discomfort with writing, maybe you feel like you're not as proficient with it, just please keep in mind next week that if you write out your paper and you do a rough draft, remember that you do have tutor.com here that you can use if you do need a little bit of additional help. You'll just want to make sure that you give yourself a few days. So that way, if you submit it to tutor.com and somebody's able to kind of read through it and give you any pointers or point out anything like that, just make sure you write the paper a little bit enough ahead of time that if you do try to submit it to tutor.com, they'll have enough time to get it back to you. So you'd be able to make any corrections or anything like that. There is also the writing lab on campus. If you do already go to campus for other things, or if you are able to go to campus, there is the writing lab on campus that they have professors that are there constantly staffed that would be able to help you if you have questions or you just need a little bit of help with your writing. Or you can even just visit the tutoring center on campus if you would actually like kind of more of a one-on-one with an actual person and not necessarily over tutor.com. You have that option as well. So take advantage of it, because these are some of those, resources that we have on campus that are free to you, and you can use them if you do feel like you maybe need a little bit of help and you want to be able to turn in your best work. If you don't use any of those, I do highly recommend that if you have anyone that you know that would be willing to proofread your paper after you write your rough draft, a lot of times somebody else, outside eyes, they can read through things and they can kind of point out if like a sentence doesn't make sense, or, maybe some grammatical errors that they can point out to you. So you'd be able to do some corrections and things like that. So even use that if you don't want to use the resources on campus. If you know of anyone that's willing to proofread your paper and read through it and kind of give you some pointers or point out anything that doesn't make sense, that's usually really helpful. I used to do that a lot in college with my boyfriend I had at the time, because we would often like read each other's papers, and just that way we were just getting an outside set of eyes looking at our paper and just catching things that we maybe can't catch ourselves because we've been writing it the whole time, and we think we're writing a sentence that we mean to write, and somebody else reads it and they're like, that doesn't really make sense. So if you have anyone that can do that for you, that's really helpful. But other than that, if you have any other questions otherwise for this week in week 7, just shoot me an email and let me know. If you have a few assignments that you still need to get caught up on, maybe you have some missing assignments, get those submitted so you can make some, some makeup points for late grades if you need to get some points made up. And other than that, I will see you all next week when we are going to work on the final paper. We'll talk about it a little bit more in detail then. And that's about it. So have a great week, and I will see you guys next week.